Hello and welcome to my Sunday from today. I just have a drink. This is grape Powerade with 0 calories, 0 sugar. And I have tacos that I made. If you want to see them, they're in my shorts. I made them yesterday. This is chicken and vegetables, mixed vegetables and onions and peppers with some refried beans because I made a pot of beans and I want to use them. So let's stick in here and get a big bite. Mm, really good. Mm. So today I've just been catching up on the weather, checking things out and stuff. Checking stories like about Ebola and just random things. But thank goodness that Ebola's not like going, ham. And they have certain sites in America. Like if you go to Africa and you come back, you have to go through certain airports and screenings and stuff. Hmm. They said in Asia they had like a lot of false alarms and that people were already annoyed. But can you imagine if they had that attitude in Africa? In Europe and Italy, they had suspected cases. South America and Brazil, they have two. And I was thinking, this could be a hoax. This is probably, I need to inform myself, This could be like false alarm, maybe just randomly got sick and, some resident just randomly got sick, some civilian. And they were like, oh, we don't know what it is, but it's really bad and contagious. Let's just like take precautions. And so I looked it up and they were like, these people came straight out of Africa, started exhibiting symptoms, and people obviously they have to do the labs. And the labs, you know, is how everybody's like so misinformed. The labs, is a big thing, is a big deal because even in Africa, where as Congo is always struck with Ebola, the labs still take time. The labs are not prioritized. They're not pushed out unless it's epidemic. And that has to go through who? That has processes. That has certain things. It's like a whole program for Ebola, the fight of Ebola, not just in Congo, not just, DRC, but the world around, you know. And that's why it's important that we find it and catch it and detect it early. They didn't intentionally do this. Nobody sabotaged the patients. Nobody nobody could have ever thought that it would for sure come out Ebola, like 100%. Nobody was that certain. And in fact, they had a certain outbreak of an influenza like virus at the time that led them into speculate maybe, this certain strain is behaving a certain way, just like this. And so they did more labs. Those got sent out. And it's because it took so long that the time when they saw, something weird going on, and the time that the results came in, there was so many already confirmed cases, you know, and even more rising um, suspected cases, and even more sick people than anything. So, and because there's a stigma surrounding Ebola, it's obviously going to be the downfall of man if they're too proud, embarrassed, or misinformed about Ebola in the first place, which is why you see, like, why is South America not doing anything? They're in the Americas. This is crazy. Like, they're gonna come in to United States of America, and we're gonna get sick and bad, bad, bad. You know, it's just a matter of a principle. You have to do the labs before you go and spread mass hysteria and say, yeah, you have it, and then the guy's like psychologically struck. And you can't just do things like that. You have to confirm it, and then the program starts in each country. Like, it's not like, like right now they're protesting in Kenya. They're like, no, US can't do this. And it's a lot of misinformation, a lot, because the base over there wanted to put it on the base, like, just set up some little site where they can rest and get treated and become healthy and fully recover and recuperate, get therapy, all that stuff, you know their nutrition, everything there. Why? Because they're American. They don't have you know Congo Medicare. So I know it's a big deal, but it's not easy for them to go in, get tested. It's like with any illness you have. And that's why I'm saying they're misinformed. That's why people are not on board with preventing, stopping, and you know, even just the information alone is getting misconstrued, because yes, it is a big deal. They should go in and get their labs. But no, we can't just force these things to happen without, you know, probable cause. Like, duh. There has to be no doubt in your mind that this person has Ebola before you quarantine them. You're taking away their rights, their freedom, their patients, yes, but patients have rights, And it's because, like, a lot of people who do believe in the stigma, they would rather leave, and that would spread it even worse. That's why we have to stick together on this, and they always say, use a softer approach to things, because you will get nothing done by dictating and barking orders. And I believe that is true a lot of in a lot of cases. And I believe what Kenya's doing is wrong, because it's like our base. I believe that if it's our base and our civilians or citizens need treatment, they should properly get treated just like everybody else should. And you know they're misusing laws that probably don't apply in Kenya. They're misusing the bipartisan laws that regulate what goes on our AFBs. And that's really, really devastating because, you know, we're time and time again brought up about what we do in our space. And it's like we're just abiding by the law. And when push comes to shove, and you're making this a cause for concern, and it's due to something going on with our own people. it's gonna be it's gonna be looking bad. Like, it's gonna look bad. And I don't think that's the look that Kenya wants. But the thing of it is also, um how do you call it, political correctness? I think wokeness, like, I don't think it's anything like that. I think it's just all that Kamala hysteria. Like, you heard of Beetle hysteria. Like, this is all like Kamala hysteria. I don't even know what else to call it. Like, it's just a bunch of people that jumped on the bandwagon of Kamala hysteria. And it still reigns true around the globe. You'll see people holding protests and they don't even live in America. If Donald Trump farted, they'd have posters made against him farting. And I don't mean to make light of the situation, but also I feel like this is a time when we need to be together. We need to come together and decide one thing, that all people, all man should be treated equally. We should all have access to medical care, and we should all treat Ebola patients the same, equally, and as such as a patient, because, that's what they are. They're human beings, and they're not well. At this point, you can call them disabled, and they're part of some pandemia going on that's widespread. And hopefully, like, we continue joining together, not just the medical community, not just, how do you call it, concerned citizens, but the world around, and say, we're gonna fight Ebola, and we're gonna do this, and we're invested. We're putting all our energy in spreading awareness and coming to the understanding and realization that facts need to be stated first, and that, each person exhibiting this needs to be tested. They need their time. Everybody deserves to be to have medical access, and whether that require hospitalization or not, I think, it's up to the doctors to decide. But they need to see a doctor. They need to have labs. And if they're ill, regardless, there needs to be a bed for them to be treated on. It's human rights, right? It doesn't matter who's president. It doesn't matter, you know, nothing like that. Can you imagine if somebody else won? Like, they would crack under pressure. No doubt in my mind, but this isn't his first rodeo. We went through COVID with Donald J. Trump, her second term president. So, I mean, we're in the best hands, in the best of care. And he has our best interest at heart. I don't think he would misuse, the land allotted for our AFUs to do something funny and sketchy. I don't think he's joking either about Ebola. So take that into consideration. decipher fact from fiction, because this isn't just a political ploy. This is a humanitarian effort at this point. I hate to say it, but it looks like, people drink the Biden Kool-Aid. And meanwhile, it's not like there's not already people burning things down in Africa. They're not just burning things down in Kenya because America wants to treat their patients. I think it's like, are you making a hospital to quarantine me in next? I think this is what that is. Okay. In in Africa, in certain parts of Africa, they think of every scenario and then they sidetrack. It's just the way things run and operate, you know? There's so many different cultures. There's so many, different customs and so many different people. And the last thing you want to do is step on people's toes, but this disease is proven deadly. And America has proved resilient. So, you know, like I said, there may be so much fear and so many, you know, so many different, how do you call them? Fables, of going around right now. But one thing for sure is that the United States is dead ass serious about treating this illness. And these unfortunate circumstances led to the discussion of opening a treatment center in Kenya. Which, as I have stated before, I think it's a really good idea that we get something rolling soon. Because it should have been yesterday that these people who are ill started their treatments and stuff. Started a medical program to, you know, help their illness and confirm the cases, through lab testing. Which ones are real and which ones, can just fly back and go to hospitals. You know, it's not like we're trying to keep people, imprison people. It's not like a internment camp or something. It's literally a treatment site. I mean, they could probably do testing too through, you know, through a nice state of the art center, right? I mean, I think it would be beneficial for Kenya. I lost a lot of people to COVID. But I didn't lose any to Ebola. And Ebola is really, really devastating. But nonetheless, both, you know, and in this isn't Ebola, needs to be treated and it needs to be taken seriously. You know, because without treatment, the chances of them surviving, it's very grave. But I see the weather is changing and the pattern is a very, very, it feels very tropical. And, you know, I'm looking at, you know, sunny days ahead, but the forecast, you know, it kind of, it cuts everything short. So like we have sunny days, but then all of a sudden it's like, okay, and then you get rain. You don't get like some precipitation. It's like summer is here. Woo-hoo. But this day you get rain. You know? And I love my sunny days and I love my, you know, my partly cloudy skies. That's what we're looking, you know, at some cloud coverage and, you know, moderate temperatures and stuff. That sounds great. It's summer. But then it like it just it's like and then I hate to interrupt your program, but we're getting rain a day. And so you saw, you know, you saw Typhoon Changmi over there cutting it up, and it's still going through, you know, the Japanese waters and Japan. It kind of lost a little bit of power, but it's still like looking at almost nearly 80 miles per hour. So, you know, I think it was clocking 75. So I think, you know, like with it hitting land, it's like shearing a little bit, but it's still very powerful. Just as powerful as when it got to the USAFBs in Okinawa, right? So then it's heading to the mainland Japan, right? So yeah, so it's gonna be headed that ways, and it kind of left a lot of you know, sheer behind it, and that kind of started like a few little hot spots in the Pacific and in Asia period. So you know, in those open waters, you know, it's like it's monsoon season, so like a little bit of extra water, it kind of saturates certain areas that already, you know, have hot spots right now. And just as it does over there, it does over here. And like we're talking about the Pacific and like south of Mexico, you know, there's all these storms coming, you know, southern Mexico, south, there's all these like little, you know, storms coming. And they said that there might be a big storm next week, you know, headed up Mexico. But the waters in the Caribbean, like I told you guys, would light up. They definitely are looking at severe weather. And because like the Gulf is just north of that area, it's already, like it's already starting to show signs of that happening. And that's why they're watching Florida, because like I told you before, there was like this big storm brewing. But now they're seeing something up north that, in the northern states where I'm at, like Ohio and stuff, they're seeing all this moisture come out to the east coast, like, and that moisture accumulates with the moisture heading that ways coming from the Gulf. And that actually is showing signs that it will develop a system on the East Coast, on the, in the open water, but, depending on the growth, like, that could literally turn into Tropical Storm Arthur. But it looks like there's hot spots even north of Bermuda. So I'm like really, really interested in that right now. I'm like very invested in that. But in speaking of the Pacific, like something blew in all the way, like a little bit, south of California. Like it blew in, like maybe the southern parts, right? Southwest. So it blew in through Texas, and it's like headed towards the Gulf too. So I'm looking at the Gulf right now because like, wow, you know, that's a lot of moisture. So when they say we're expecting a storm, then I'm like, definitely there's going to be something going on over there. Because right now I saw Alabama had like a bunch of like, I don't even know. I don't know if they're unconfirmed tornadoes or what, but down trees, down lines, lightning strikes. Like it was wild. And I think they're still going to go through it because there's still moisture heading that ways. So, it's very gloomy around the Gulf. And yeah, the weather here is a little bit cloudy, like I said. So I'm looking at the weather, like this is very extra tropical for this season. And I always say whenever Asia goes through it, we go through it, and I think this is our going through it. So right now we're looking at hot spots in the open water, but also, like there's certain places that that are getting it, especially like the Panhandle and stuff. They're always, like they call it tornado season right now. And then it hits like real actual summer, and then it hits hurricane season. So I mean, there's always cause and effect when it comes to the weather. And I think like the more that we study this stuff, the more that we'll be able to prepare people for things going on in the future. Because at the end of the day, as with Ebola, as is weather, I guess, it's also, it's always about preventing the loss of life. And that's first and foremost. So I hope this mukbang made you guys think. And thoughts and prayers to anybody affected by the storms or by any epidemic or disease or illness. And I'll see you guys on the next one. So don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. My Sunday friend. Bye bye.